Okay, I have hit record. Welcome everybody this morning. I'm Tiffany Rauskop and I'm our college's Writing Across the College director, as Deanne said, and I'm also in our English department. And this is always I think it's a fun workshop because we're going to talk about what goes wrong with email, and Deanne sort of started that off here. So I'm just going to share my screen to the presentation that I've got. And let me emphasize that I really enjoy it when people unmute and enter and just jump in. So feel free to do that with any comments or questions, or throw something in the chat. I will do my best to keep my eye on the chat as well as on this presentation. Let me get over here. Hang on. Everything's hidden under this top thing. Okay. All right, so this is about writing effective emails, and what we're talking about specifically here are professional emails. So we're talking about workplace emails, and I wanted to start out with what Deanne just started out with. So she read my mind with what we were going to do. So we've put all of those concerns in the chat already. And the thing that I want to point out, one of the reasons that email is so frustrating, and we have these concerns about like things are too wordy. I'm sending emails to students. There's too much information in one email. I'm glancing through the chat again, worried about that your tone isn't sounding professional enough. Proper openers and closers. What are the criteria for professional sounding emails? Takes up too much time. Absolutely. Reducing confusion and with prospective students and so on and so forth. So the fundamental reason, oops, hang on, let me close this chat. The fundamental reason that email is so frustrating is because it serves multiple purposes in our lives. And it is one of the few genres of writing. So a genre of writing is like a type of writing. And so, for example, like a letter to an editor is a genre of writing. Let's see, a grocery list is a genre of writing. So it's different, types of writing that's how we sort of organize our thoughts, and we have certain expectations for the genre. Email is a particular genre of writing that does so many things and has so many different audiences that we end up, I don't know if I want to say making mistakes, but we end up sort of cross-pollinating, or we cross ourselves in our emails. So for example, we use email professionally, and in that format, so at our work, we use emails in multiple ways. So we might be just sending a note to one of our coworkers asking them to do something. We might be sending a formal request for a meeting. We might be writing an email that's sort of a formal report, or maybe it's prefacing a formal report. But then we do email in our personal lives as well. And we use different tones, and we change the way that we write when we're writing for those different audiences and perspectives. And what happens is that our signals get crossed because we have to constantly be thinking of who are we writing to, what's this particular context, and I need to adapt my language to that particular circumstance. And it's tiring to do that. And so sometimes we stop thinking about it. And sometimes we send an email that may be too like not professional enough. And I think we see this a lot with students. So when students contact the college for information, they might write an email that might sound more like a text, or it might sound like a tweet or something like that. And that's because they're crossing these different genres and they're not adapting to the different genres. And this just takes time and sort of staying conscious of what we're doing. So what we're going to do in this workshop is, hang on, let me click through these really quick. I want to get these all up here. Oops, that didn't work. Hang on, I apologize. I have this coded the wrong way. So what I want to do real quick is I want to go through some of the kind of the main things to think about when you're sending an email professionally. And then we're going to go through and we're going to look at some emails that are poorly written. And then we're going to come back together. We're going to talk about why they're bad. So first thing, so this should have been in one of the handouts that you received. And so first thing is obviously know when and when not to send an email. So sometimes a in-person or phone call is better. Obviously, no arguing, not talking about personal opinions or interests. That in-person or phone call thing is interesting to me because as somebody who teaches writing, I feel much more comfortable writing than I do speaking in person. It's just, I've always felt more comfortable with writing. And so I tend to hide behind writing sometimes when a phone call should be the thing that I do. Or I'm sometimes lazy and I just want to send off a message as opposed to getting up and going to talk to somebody. So thinking about when to and when not to send an email is very important. Making the purpose of your email obvious. So because we get so many different emails, the more specific you can get on an email, the better. Having that subject line, specific to what is going on or following certain protocols that your area has, particularly like in student services, when we were talking about student information. You wanted to explain the purpose of your email so that people know, what to expect when they open it. You want to be brief, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later. But specifically when we read online, particularly when we're reading emails, you want the bulk of the message to be visible on one screen. And if it's not, it would be good to alert your reader to that fact. I see a chat has come up here. Hang on one second. Nick said, I often defer to email instead because of the simplicity, because of phone, because there remains a record. Yeah, if you need a record, then definitely an email is better to do, absolutely. So that's knowing when to send an email. Hang on one second. When you consider layout and organization, we're going to talk about greetings. We're going to look at paragraphs. We're going to look at attachments and signatures. When I provide to you these sample emails, we're going to talk about which ones work and which ones don't work. Being aware of language use. So because of like what Nick said, it's a record. You want to make sure that your language use is inclusive and not discriminatory in any way. And I apologize that this is cut off over here. In academic settings, in our professional settings, you want to have basically standard edited English so that it is, because you're trying to present yourself in a way that is professional. Hang on one second, let me enable this live transcription. Okay. You want to reduce use of emojis, but this is also, it's tricky because we use email in so many different ways at work. So I might send a message to, say, my supervisor, and I might use a particular tone or a particular style. But then if I start writing to, one of my colleagues, and we're sort of going back and forth, I might end up using some emojis. I might end up not following all the standard edited English. So that's why it's very important to be aware of like who you're writing for and what the context is. Finally, wait, not finally, I think there's two more here. Thinking about your responses. Somebody wrote that it takes so much time. One of the reasons email takes so much time is because we have to do follow-up emails because people haven't responded to everything that we've asked. Also, those obnoxious reply alls where we're getting emails that are just saying thanks for this or congratulations or something, we don't need to see that. And making sure that you answer everything when you have when you've received an email. Next, being thoughtful and courteous. So what's the time frame for how quickly you should respond to an email? We live in a very, fast-paced world now where everything is immediate and, people expect responses right now, but, what's reasonable? Also thinking about, that urgency, what really is urgent with email, and then making sure about addressing and attaching things. Okay, and this is the most important thing. Remember that email is never private. So when you press send, you lose control over who sees what you have written. And this goes back to what Nick was talking about there with having there be a record. Every email that you send is a record, regardless of what it is, about who it's sent to. It is not yours. Once you have sent it on SLCC servers, it is not yours. So here's what we're going to do. Let me pause there for just a second, see if anybody has any thoughts or questions before we move into sort of the activity portion. I'm going to count to 7, which is what I hear you're supposed to do on Zoom. Okay, so Nobody has any questions. So I'm going to send you, if you open up your chat, I am hopefully going to put a link in here right now. Is that going to go? Nope. Hold on one second. Let me go grab it. Let me grab this link. Copy link. Okay. So I have just put a link in the chat, and I would ask you to click on that in just a moment, because what we're going to do is I think it's 10 different emails. So email 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And what I'm going to ask you to do, we're going to get into breakout groups here in just a moment. And you should have a handout, or you could just take notes on your own. You should have this handout that was an email analysis. And I just want you to note what you think is wrong with each of the emails. And so just go through and just take notes, and you don't have to do it on this page by any means, but just having a sense of what you think is wrong with them, because there are things wrong with every single email. What I'm going to do here, let me create some breakout groups. There are 38 of you here. Hang on, where's breakout rooms? There's 38 of you here. And if I do my math quickly, I want you in smallish groups. So I'm going to create 9 breakout rooms. Is that going to work? Yeah, that's going to work. Okay, so there should be 4 or 5 participants in each room. When I create these breakout rooms, you're going to be assigned automatically. So just go ahead and join the group. And then somebody should click on that link and pull up those emails. Hang on, there's a message in the chat here. Deanne will not be joining. She's running to another event. That's fine. Bye, Deanne. Thank you for your help. So you're going to go in the breakout rooms, open up that link that has these emails. And I want you to go through each of these emails. Oh, but this is great. Lots of you are in here already. I want you to go through the emails and talk with your group members about what's wrong with them and find anything and everything you can. I'm going to give you about 15 minutes for this, and then we're going to spend the rest of the time going through them together in conversation about, what's wrong with them and what we should do differently. Okay, so let me pause and see if anybody has any questions before I open the rooms. Anybody have any questions? Okay, so I will be here. If you have any questions, I'm going to give you 15 minutes. I'm going to create the breakout rooms, just join them, and then start looking at these emails, okay? There you go. You should be able to join your rooms now. And let me know if you're having trouble joining them, and I can try to help you get in. Let's see. Bettina, are you having a hard time getting into the room? Just let me know if you need any help getting in the rooms. Okay, it looks like people are coming back. All right. Great, everybody's back. I hope that you had enough time to get through at least most of them. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to talk through these, and hopefully some of them will be entertaining. Hopefully, some of them will be things that will help you learn or just reinforce. I mean, I think so much of this is common sense, but sometimes it's just good to be, reminded of things. So let's just start with number one. And I'm going to encourage you either to unmute yourself or to put stuff in the chat. So I would encourage everybody to have your chat open, and I will try to relay what gets put in this. This is one of the challenges of working on Zoom, doing workshops on Zoom. But let's see what we can do. So email number one. So this is to a book editor. It's CC'd to 15 contributors of the book. There's a response here, and then here's the message. So anybody see anything problematic with this?
We saw a lot of typos.
Okay.
So like even in the first line, thanks so much, exclamation, period.
Okay.
Get on this right away.
Okay. And
it was a reply all rather than a single reply.
Yeah, why does she CC all 15 contributors if she's just replying to the book editor? So
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. So the punctuation thing right here is an issue, but also I want you to think about, so like that's an issue, but the bigger issue is absolutely, why did she respond to all 15 contributors of the book? And that there's no name or signature. So the no name or signature that Danny wrote in here, one of the things with that is sometimes we need to think about when we use the names and signatures, and we've got another email later on that talks about names and signatures. But the primary issue here is that you're CCing everybody. And it's so frustrating. We have actually put in an email moratorium in the English department where there's 34 of us. It's because we just couldn't deal with having those reply alls. So just be very thoughtful to what needs to be replied all to, for sure.
That function almost needs to just be removed from email.
I think they have a second verification window. Did you really mean to reply to all?
That's a great idea. I think that's a great idea.
Microsoft
Absolutely.
could put that in, because I've seen more than my share of somebody replying all, and I've done it mistakenly. So it's a good thing, I think.
I think that, don't they have that function that, like, if you say the word attachment, but then you don't actually attach something, they'll pop that up.
I think prompt you.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea, though, to have the confirmation. Are you sure you want to reply all? Are you sure? Okay. This next one. Okay. This is from a faculty member to a student. The student wrote this. Faculty member wrote this. What's the problem with this?
Well, it's rude.
It's definitely rude. What else is wrong with it?
The teacher doesn't really answer the student's question. I don't know how. And the teacher just says it's written in the syllabus. No reference. Like, I understand getting that email from the student is very irritating, but say like, this is on syllabus page 3, look it up and let me know if you still have questions or something like that.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. And this is something like, so this is now in writing. So this type of rude response is now in writing, and it's, there's a record of it. And the point is, so like, we're going to get messages from students like this. We're going to get, hey, we're going to get these messages. We're going to get these things that look like texts. And for some reason, people are irritated by that. And I think it feels like, and if you take my other course, grammar phobia, we can talk about why people get offended by this, but people get offended by it. And then sometimes it will influence how we respond. So we have to just take a breath. Yeah, we have to just take a breath and just, say, okay, this student is used to texting and they have different norms for their communication. And so just take a breath and respond in a way that is useful to them. Brett, did you want to say something?
No.
Oh, okay, great. Okay. So the next one, hold on. Nick wrote, wait before click send on the reply. Absolutely. Everybody should wait. Many years ago, I didn't used to wait and I suffered the consequences from it. So, always wait, particularly on your SLCC emails. Okay, next one. This is to a colleague and friend. Clearly, what's the problem with this one?
They're not clear about what they're actually talking about and felt threatened about.
But should they? Should they put what they're threatened about in
No.
an email?
Should not have been an email.
Yeah, more of a phone call.
Go ahead, Monique. Monique, say what you were saying.
I said, I think this should be more of a phone call situation because, yeah, it just doesn't seem like an email is appropriate for
Yes.
this conversation at this time.
Definitely, definitely. Yes. So let's see. Hang on one second. I've got some stuff going on in the chat here. So not a work email either. So, and then Sonia wrote, we need to remember that cultural norms are different and what may seem rude to us in an email may not be rude to the student individual. Thank you, Sonia. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, absolutely. So like I used to be, so if we're going back to this email for a moment, this hey, I used to be really irritated by students addressing me as hey. But then I read this book called Because Internet, it's like the changing norms of the English language or something, and learned that hey is the equivalent now of hello or hi in different contexts. So it changed my understanding of that. JL said, don't use all caps. All caps feels like you're shouting. And I think this person is shouting in this particular email. But yeah, this is not something that should be put in email. So this is definitely the either, whoops, hold on. This is definitely either the send it by text. Don't send it by Jabber because Jabbers also belongs to the college, but send it by your own personal text or get up and, go over and talk to them. So this definitely happens for sure. Okay, the next one, this one cracks me up. So to my subordinate, please call me, no content in the email. Sent with high importance.
Just call them.
Yes, just call them. Could you imagine being on the receiving end of this? Yes, Sharisa, lazy, just call.
I've received this. at the
Have you, Nick?
college.
Have you?
Yeah, pretty. And then when you get back to them, they're like, oh, it's not an emergency. I just wanted to let you know, blah, blah, blah.
Angela, you've gotten it
You're going to be
too?
fired or something.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
just terrifying. Like Sharisa says, it is terrifying. This does happen. And this is what I'm talking about with like, we use email for so many different contexts and so many different audiences and so many different purposes. That's when things get crossed up and we end up scaring somebody.
Can I play devil's advocate a little bit?
Please do. I love the devil's advocate.
What if this is the only way that they've been able to get a hold of that person? They've tried to call, they've left messages, they're not responding back.
I think that's fine then.
You know,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So
yes.
you have,
I would say, Nick,
Yeah. Yes.
my opinion would still be to write like 1 or 2 sentences about what you need them to call you about,
agreed.
not just no information. So, be like, I haven't been able to get a hold of you. I'm very concerned. Please call me at your earliest convenience. Something,
Yeah.
I've done that.
some sort of information.
I've sent an email and said, I've tried to get in touch with you, or I've left a voicemail message and I just wanted to get back with you,
Yeah,
and
that's fine.
being a little more, so that there's more information there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. So see how so much of this is basically common sense, but because email becomes sort of this background of our lives, we stop thinking about it. We stop thinking about how to best communicate in it. Hang on, I've lost my cursor here. There we go. Okay. What's wrong with this one? This is from me to an associate provost.
Bad signature and looks like no details in the reply, basically. I just slipped my mind.
Yeah.
This is to the provost, so that's one of those things where you definitely want to be much more professional, no emojis,
Yes.
Maybe more of a professional apology of like, maybe not excuses, but definitely a little bit more of an explanation than just sorry,
Absolutely.
sad face.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely. And Rebecca, so Danny said too casual. Rebecca said, oh, hold on. Rosemary said too informal. And Rebecca picked up on a month delay in responding. Yeah. So it took a month to respond to this. And so, yeah, absolutely inappropriate. So how quickly should we respond to emails? It depends on who sent you the email. So if it's your supervisor, you got to get to that quicker. But within a few days, I think is a pretty reasonable response time. It's also not okay to expect the response like immediately. That's also not okay. That's keeping us too chained to our desks. But within a few days. Also, if you know that it's going to take you some time to respond, if you know that there's something that's come in, it's going to take you a few days or something, just send a quick response saying, thanks, got your email. I'll get back to you by so and so. Okay. So yeah, really good. No emojis. For faculty, including syllabus replies in however many hours. Yeah, most faculty will say, at least it's in the syllabus. It'll say, I'll get back to you within 1 working day, something like that. Okay. So this is a perfectly fine email, but what's wrong with it?
Should
Could
be
be
a
more
text.
than one- There could be more than one wife or husband.
Okay.
Who's T? Yeah.
So what do you think's wrong with this?
Maybe not on work stuff.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, no, yeah, this is sent from a work email. Yeah. So no,
This is
not
a
appropriate.
text. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's a text. And I like including this one in this because I have a husband who is kind of a Luddite, and he only has one email address, and it is his work email address. And I have told him years upon years upon years upon years, get a Gmail address, but that's too much for him. He just needs one email. My spouse is not an SLCC employee. And so anything like this should be done on text or on your personal email. So none of this should be done on your work email. Okay. TMI. Yep. Okay. What's wrong with this one? And notice, so I put this together for an accessible workshop I did a while ago. So that's why this says written in curly font and written in bold braggadocio font, so that screen readers could read this. So hopefully you understood that. So what's wrong with this one?
They blasted a whole ton of people without using BCC, and they sent it with high importance.
Brett, you are amazing. So yes, exactly. The use of the BCC is so important. Yeah, you should not be sending emails to people, without, them knowing that they're also involved in the same idea. So absolutely. Good job, Brett. What else is going on with this?
We talked about making sure things were not in crazy, silly fonts, Comic Sans, anything like that. It's very unprofessional, like Arial, Calibri.
Yeah.
Those are the acceptable ones.
Very good. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Isn't there some kind of a meme that's like what's wrong with Comic Sans or something like that? Some kind of a meme that goes on over that. Let's see. So Sharissa said it's very wordy. Danny said so much, too casual to send to VP. Request is not specific enough. What feedback do you need? Get to the point, Sharissa says. Also, 6 pages will take longer than shouldn't take too long. Angela says, in the text, it asks for feedback, but doesn't give a deadline. Thank you, Angela. Very good. This is one reason we have to keep following up with people. Carrie wrote, the subject line is not wordy to the point. It needs a little more explanation. Absolutely. Just ideas. JL
could be spam
says,
too.
It could be spam. Absolutely. JL says
Given how
not
they
succinct.
blasted someone.
Yeah. No, it could be. Absolutely. JL said not succinct, all caps. Absolutely. I mean, here's what I need from you. You're already yelling at somebody. So sometimes, IT sends out these phishing, these emails to us to see, if we're paying attention to what are dangerous emails. And this could be one of those for sure. Anything else to add to this one? You all are so good. See, so like this, go ahead.
I don't like the indents.
Oh, thank you, Rich. Actually, yes. Go ahead. Somebody else was going to say something.
Oh, yeah, no, right, with the indent, but also there is such a juxtaposition with having addressed everyone in a curly font and then signing in a bold font. It's almost like putting yourself above the other people.
Really good. I like it.
If you're a visual person.
Absolutely, Rosemary. That's very good insight. I'm glad you said the thing also about the paragraphs. This is a formatting issue. So when we're reading on screens, you should always use block paragraphs, which is where you have a paragraph and it's all to one side, and then it's all to the left margin, and then have a space, and then another paragraph. When we read on screens, we need to have those spaces in order to digest the information. We can read paragraphs when it's on paper much easier, but the way that our minds and brains and eyes work on screens, you want to have as much white space around as possible. So thank you for bringing up those paragraphs. Let's see. Okay. What's up with this one?
A really massive and unnecessary sign off is the
Sign-off
thing
is
that
great.
we noticed. It
Yes.
almost reads like a Twitter handle or something like that at the very bottom. Just a lot of unnecessary information.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So this one made me laugh as I was putting this together. So, yeah. And also, like my body, my choice. I chose this particularly because we really don't know what this is arguing about right now, because it's being used for different perspectives right now. But we do not put political perspectives into our work email. Absolutely not. It just, is not okay. In these professional email, do whatever you want with your personal email. And just having everything, but I'm sure that you've seen these signatures before where people put every single thing that they've ever done. It's like they put a resume into their email. Whoops, hold on. Didn't mean to do that. What else? There's a couple more things wrong.
First sentence is very long. I guess it's the second sentence.
Yes. Yeah. So having really long sentences on screens are difficult to read. So you want to shorten your emails.
There should be a separate email here just for them to find out if they're continuing their roles rather than making an email saying they're not sure if we're going to do that. So,
Good point. Good point. Yeah. So having specific, succinct emails that are asking one thing, and that's one reason that we get too much stuff shoved together and we don't get the responses. Let's see. Grammar mistakes a question, not a question. And so grammar with this one, there's another one a little bit later where the grammar is very important. One of the issues with grammar and emails is that the correctness level of your grammar depends on who you're sending it to and what it's about. So if I'm writing something to like a friend, not a friend, but like a colleague that, who I'm on informal terms with, if my grammar's not perfect, it's fine. But if I'm sending something to somebody else that it might become more important. And that's one of the fluidity things of email that makes it so challenging. I think that there's one more mistake on here. Did you guys see them? One more
Is
mistake?
it the parentheses, like unnecessary information in parentheses?
I thought that I put in here, and I could be wrong. Oh yeah. So right here. So I'm attaching the agenda and my brainstorm for your review, but only the agenda is attached. And that may have been too hard to see with the way that this is laid out. And I am notorious for forgetting to attach things. And I'm always following up with, oh, sorry, here's the attachment. And that gets back to, I think Connie wrote in the original chat, that it just takes so much time because you have to follow up with all these, things that people are following up with. Angela wrote, one thing I like about this email is the subject line. I get so busy. It really helps to have a clear indication of which meeting this email is referring to. Absolutely. I think that in indicating specifics in that subject line is a very important thing, particularly because we get a lot of different emails about meetings and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's one good thing that this email did. Let's see, we are almost there. So email 9. Okay, what's up with this one?
The syllabus, the subject has multiple, well, the text has multiple things and the subject doesn't address that.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, so it's about syllabus statement. And then here, the administrative assistant talks about the potluck, office hours, syllabus uploaded, and come and pick up your gift cards. And what happens here in the response? So this one's not so great because they're asking too many disparate things, but then what happens here?
Doesn't answer the questions.
Yeah, it doesn't answer everything. And this is an example of both emails being poor, because this email sets people up to fail, particularly because we're going through things so quickly. And this one doesn't respond to everything. This is too hard, even though it's very brief, it's too hard to read through to get everything. If you want to ask a particular, if you want to have an email that has multiple requests, put those requests in bullets or numbers so that somebody can go through and just respond to each of them. This one has an emoji in it, and I would argue that this emoji is okay, because this is me to my administrative assistant. I'm on very good terms with that person. I want them to know that I think that they're awesome, and we chat quite a bit. The emoji here's okay, where it wasn't okay in the one to the associate provost. So Gladys wrote, not everything is answered, i.e. office hours. Absolutely. Yep, and that is because this email was written in a way that made it kind of impossible to see. Okay, last one. So this one's to the president. So what problems do you see here?
Are you on good terms with President Huffelin?
I'm on pretty good terms with her. I was hired the year after her. I've known her for a very long time.
I'm just curious by the TIF.
That's
There's
a good
lot
point.
of there's
Good
a lot
point.
of spelling mistakes, a lack of proofreading, and especially to the president, even if you are on good terms, that's not something that should be happening.
Absolutely, yes. So this is a case. Oh, Rebecca said, didn't CC or admin. Yes, very good, Rebecca. Yeah, that's very important. Yes, this is a case where the proofreading is crucial. And so, and if I'm writing something to the president, even though I have known the president for almost 30 years, I'm writing to her in an official capacity here, because I'm sending a report from my program, as opposed to just saying, I don't know, how was your weekend or something like that. So I should be addressing her as President Huffelin. And I should be making sure that everything is spelled correctly. So this becomes a use of the email more of like the formal internal memo, as opposed to just a conversational piece. Nick said CC to Dean too. Possibly, yeah, depending on, so yeah, I do report to my Dean for the WAC program. So yes, and maybe even the provost, who knows?
Is it a WAC program or a WACA program?
It's actually WAC. And so that's one of the typos that was put in there
Typo, yeah.
intentionally. And so, so yeah, so these are the important things, absolutely, about, I put this one in here because I wanted to show that like when it just completely depends on who you're writing to, but also the context or the circumstances of that message. So I could send President Huffelin a message that just says, Denise, thanks so much for your support the other day. I hope you have a good weekend. Thanks, Tiff. I could do that. But this is a formal circumstance where I'm sending the report. So I need to raise that. It's called a register. So different registers of formality. I need to raise that register to a more formal register because of this.
That's a good point. I was thinking that's why if it were me, I would include everybody along the chain between me and the president. So
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
include the dean and the provost. Like you say, though, if it's just have a nice weekend, or I enjoyed golfing or seeing you at the restaurant yesterday, that's a different, like you say, different register.
Yeah.
Yet it's all email. It gets very confusing.
It's very confusing because it's email, and it's a modality. So it's a modality in that, like, it's an email or it's a phone call or it's, writing. So that's a different modality, but the genre of email is one that there's multiple types of emails that we do, but they're not as well defined in terms of their expectations as other genres. And it's because we're using this same form, the same mode to do all of this different types of communication. And I don't know that there is another type of communication that we do that is this fluid. Let me check the chat. So from an accessibility standpoint, a screen reader would have a hard time deciphering this. Is that because of the spelling errors?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Like it would read it in a way that like that, especially that last sentence, they probably wouldn't get the content at the end there just because so many of those words are messed up.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So and so when you are writing an email that may be used or may be sent to a wider audience, then absolutely you need to check that spelling and make sure that there's not these types of errors.
Hey, Tiffany,
Hold on one second. Let me say, Jan said, recommend defining the acronym WAC. Yeah, that could be because this is a formal report. Yeah, I think it might be a good idea to do that. Having the acronym spelled out is raising that register up to a bit more formal of a level, and then putting the acronym in parentheses after it, and then using the acronym afterwards. Yes, who wanted to say something?
this is Rich. I
Yeah, hi,
have
Rich.
found a good way when you do the spell check.
Mm-hmm.
There's and I do this because I tend to write too fast, or my brain goes faster than my fingers.
Yes.
But there's the read aloud function.
Oh, is there?
And it really works well. Like on this one here, if you were to read aloud that, and it reads it just like it is, and so you would have caught a lot of those, even though your brain knew exactly what you're trying to say. The read aloud doesn't, and it would have caught them.
Is that something? So that's in Outlook.
Yes.
Okay.
Under the review tab where you have spell check.
Okay. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for that. That is excellent. Excellent.
Obviously, you
news.
got to have some speakers on, but
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Really good. Okay. Okay. So this is just that same thing that's on your handout. Let me stop sharing real quick. So I want to be mindful of your time. We got a couple more minutes, maybe just one more minute actually. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts or concerns that we have not addressed about email in terms of reducing the amount of email that you get and have to deal with? Mainly it's the things about, being very clear on what you're asking from somebody, being sure that you're replying to all. That's the main way to reduce that kind of email, and to make calls or send jabber texts for more items of your communication, or just go talk to people. I mean, getting up and going and walking and talking to somebody if you are on campus can be useful. Oh, Deanne said this workshop goes until 11:15. Okay. Well, let's slow down just a minute and see if anybody has any questions or thoughts or things that we have not addressed that you'd like to talk about or ask about.
I have a question I'd like some feedback on.
Yeah.
So we looked at one example of an email that was very informal from a student specifically, but I get similar emails from my staff. So I don't want to be rude, and I don't want to, be snippy. I absolutely don't want to do that. But what's the best way to tell someone that their email is inappropriately informal without offending them? Does anybody have any suggestions or feedback on that?
I do. Yeah. What I would do is I would approach it like how we've been approaching it here, by explaining that we use email in so many different ways. We end up working at cross purposes. And because it's so fluid. And so you could say, you know what, your emails, they're reading more like text. So they're reading more like, informal, short emails that you might send to a friend. And what you could say is, because all of our emails are subject to public records, that we need to, raise the formality a bit, and then just provide some examples of what you're expecting. If you can compare what they're doing to what you want, that will help them make that bridge much quicker. So people just need to see what they're doing and see what you would like, and then that will help a lot. And if that feels like, and also I'm always available to come into departments and work on these things more localized and more specific. So if bringing me in would be helpful, I can do that as well. And what we would do is we would just get a selection of emails and we would just compare them. And because when people see what the patterns are, then they can start to make the changes.
Another suggestion.
Yes, Jonathan.
I would say that the professional development department has this great class that they could take about effective email writing.
Thanks, Jonathan.
And then they could take care of that as well.
I
That's
like
very
that.
sweet.
Outsource the work. I like it.
That's very sweet. Rebecca asks, what's the best way to give feedback to colleagues that don't typically send the most clear emails? So Rebecca, can I ask you to follow up on that? When you say most clear, what are you seeing? What's been not clear?
That sometimes I get emails where I have to read it 30 times to follow their flow because it's really long, lengthy, confusing sentences, or they're very long, like super long emails, and I'm just like, nope, I tuned out, can't do it. I mean, I just see a wide range of things from a wide range of people. So I like your idea. I mean, if it's internal to our department, I think having you come in would make the most sense. But if it's external to my department, what's the best way? I know it's similar to the question that they just asked, but like, what's the best way to give feedback to people that you work with about their communication?
Very delicately, I think. I think, maybe we could circulate the handout that you've had, like we could circulate that more widely. That might be one way to start. Another way might be just to be sort of, kind but direct, to say, you know what, I'm having a hard time, following, exactly what you want. Could you maybe send me multiple emails, or could we maybe talk? Because it sounds like from what you're saying, it sounds like they're talking to you in emails as opposed to having a conversation. So maybe just picking up the phone and saying, you know what, I got your email. Could we just talk through it? Because there was so much. You can be sort of lighthearted about it and just be like, there was so much text. I didn't have time, I couldn't really read through it all. Could we just chat for a minute? And just maybe building that kind of a rapport. Let's see. Is it necessary to always bullet or number email items in an email? Sometimes I think this looks too formal or dictatorial, so I just give each item with its own line spacing. That's a good question. No, I don't think it's always necessary. I think that if you're gonna ask more than 3 things, or if there's more, like anything more than 3, I would probably bullet or number, and have them be brief sentences, brief sections. Because what you want to do is you just want to create space around the text so people can digest each piece. Okay. Monique said, is it better to send one email monthly with all information for the month, or better to send multiple emails throughout the week? So more emails more often, or one with a lot of information? Oh, that's such a good question. I don't know. I have heard, and I'm not the expert on this, but I've heard that when people get regular emails, so like they can anticipate an email, they actually don't read it. And so, because you're just anticipating, okay, well, oh, this is the monthly email, it's just going to say the same thing, so I'm just not going to pay attention to it. Whereas if you're sending emails that are not regular, I think I heard about this with the SLCC Today's and the messages from the president, is that they intentionally do not send those out on a predetermined schedule, that they send them out on irregular schedules so that people don't get complacent or don't anticipate them. So I don't know, Monique. What I would do is I would ask the people who you are sending it to. So just send a message to them and say, hey, what would you prefer? And then do what they say. That's what I would do with that. Let's see, another question. When should we use BCC? You should use BCC when you are sending information to people or sending an email to people who are not already necessarily interacting with each other on a topic or a project. So, for example, I did this. It was a research project on student writing assignments. And I was working with about 20 different faculty, but they didn't necessarily know that they were working with each other, because I was working with each of them individually, but I didn't want to send 20 different emails. So I sent a BCC then, but then in the next year of the project, when we all knew who was working on it, then I changed it to just CCs, because they knew that everybody everybody knew who was involved in something. And so then it became a group. So just think of it as, if you want the people to know that the other people are involved, then send a CC. If you feel like you should keep that separate for now and the relationship is just with you and the different people, send BCCs. A template of what a professional email looks like is really helpful for people that have had no exposure to these kinds of resources. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Maybe I should put that together and I could send it to Deanne and she could send it out to everybody. Absolutely. Let's see. What else? Any other questions? Anything else coming up? I'm waiting my 7 seconds.
Sometimes I get student emails and I have not been able to find the answers or research out and ask people to, it's always relying on something else.
Right.
It's buried in the email. So do you have strategies for not necessarily email content, but organization of emails?
Yes, I do. Yeah. So explain that again, Bonnie. So is the information buried from the student or is it buried from your coworkers?
It just gets buried in my email because I get other things. And so sometimes it's hard to do I mark it as unread again so I can go.
Oh, gotcha. I know, yeah.
Get ready to go home at the end of the day and I've got all these emails still open instead of, shutting it down just because of the nature of the interruptions throughout the day.
Gotcha. What I do, I can just tell you what I do. I use the flags. I use Outlook for Mac, so I'm not sure it's the exact same thing, but are there flags in the Outlook program?
Yeah.
Like you can color code something. I have a color coding system. So I've got a certain color, like red should be for immediate, but my red is like stuff that needs to be done, but I don't need to get to right away. And then I've got different colors that are things that I haven't addressed. And so I just have the color coded and they kind of pile up, but it's a good way to sort of sort things out. But I don't know, what do other people do for that? When you have emails that you need to get back to?
You can group emails in Outlook also. That helps organize it.
Okay. How do you do that?
I think it's a right click on like the top category for it. Like you have favorites and then you can create other groups.
Okay.
Make sure that's right.
Oh, there's another way you can do it. Yeah. So like you can put them into folders. I put them, I email my to-do list, respond to so-and-so, follow up with name. Oh, I agree with you, but I bet that Bonnie's getting millions of emails from students. So I'm not sure. Yeah, but you could definitely do that as well. Responding, but I like the idea of grouping and just like going through them from time to time.
So I've read, people talk about being effective leaders in business and on and on and on and on and on. And there's so many different ideas. And I've often read that, you should devote a certain time, like between 10 o'clock and noon, I'll answer emails. That's never really worked for me because if somebody has a question, especially a student or a colleague or faculty, I don't want to wait. So I dip in and out of emails all day long rather than putting things into folders. I mean, to me, to figure out to flag or to whatever, that's more work than just answering. So, but then everybody's different. So when it comes to people I work with, I kind of know, are they the kind of person who's going to answer me the same day, or am I going to hear from them tomorrow? Which isn't really an email issue, but it's more just knowing people. And again, that's hard when, like, if I were an advisor and I had 600 students I worked with, I would have no idea. So maybe I'm fortunate that way, but I love writing and I love email, but man, it's a whole thing.
It is.
Many of us never had anything to do with.
Yeah, it is. It's a whole thing for sure. Absolutely. Oh. Yeah. So I think, and those of you that are receiving so many emails from students, I think, you're working on this on a whole extra level of, trying to interpret, what students are asking and then having to get back to them. And I think some organizational process is probably good, but I agree with Nick that it's kind of your own working personality about, can you do email from this time to this time? or are you a dip in and dip out person? And so I think it's just some exploration about what works best for you.
I used to teach in Texas. This is a long time ago, and they bought all the faculty new desktop computers. This is a long time ago, and many of them refused to use them and refused to use email, and students would email them and they never even turned their computers on. And you could walk by the offices and you would see these computers on their desks, like literally dusty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I thought was really insulting to students.
Well, and like,
yeah.
and that's like what some people were saying earlier. If you know, if you've been sending emails and somebody hasn't gotten back to you, like, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, you know, then you got to make that phone call. Then you got to go by their office or go talk to them. I mean, it is, yeah, this is more of a, like a personality issue than an email issue. It's, yeah.
Yeah.
Too
and
bad, too bad Sarah Reed left.
Oh,
So, yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Any other?
that was, yeah,
Yeah.
separate issue.
Yeah. Any other questions or anything? We've got 3 minutes left. Now counting to
Thank you
7.
for the class.
Thank you for being here. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Again, part of my job is to support writing across the college wherever it takes place. And so just let me know if there's anything I can do for your local, situation. I will try to put together an email template and I'll send it to Deanne and she can send it out to everybody. And yeah, I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Tia.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for your participation. Loved it. Loved it. I'll send that out to all of you, including the link to the recording. Okay.
Thank
Have a
you.
wonderful fall afternoon.
Thanks so much.